This is one of those Sundays when there's lots to talk about. Too much, really. When I was in Arizona and had to speak at the conference, part of what I spoke about was this gospel because it was a bunch of Franciscans, right? About 100, 150 Franciscans from all over the place. And this gospel, when at a Eucharist, St. Francis heard this gospel, he jumped up and said, "This is what I want. This is what I long for with my whole life." And being the dramatist that he was, no sandals, a rope for a belt, no belt, he tried to live it literally. But it's really about discipleship and the cost of discipleship, which is not at all easy and demands a lot. G.K. Chesterton, that great 19th century author, said that Christianity has not been found wanting for trying. It has been found too difficult and therefore has not been tried. It is very difficult to really be a Christian. When we look at the Gospels, who does Jesus go after? It's not the prostitutes or the tax collectors like Matthew, or the lepers, or the Samaritan woman, and often who he holds up, like the Good Samaritan in the story, are the people nobody else would look at. And we talked about that last week, right? When we first, I think last week, it's all a blur to me. And I was kind of in my zombie jet lag stage last week. But I think we talked about Abram and Sarah as being two of the most unlikely people. And that's who God chooses, not people that religious people would look at. And so in the Gospels, who does Jesus go after? It is only religious people. And as Richard Rohr used to tell us all the time in class, religion is a great place to hide from God, because it's easy to look good and not really do it. It's easy to go through the motions, but not really believe. And I wanted to, obviously from the picture I chose, I wanted to talk about Sarah and her laugh. So that first picture in there is about the very pregnant old woman, Sarah, laughing her head off. And, you know, the stars in the heavens are from God telling Abram that he would be the father of many nations, which has kind of a dark twist in the story, how it played out. And his descendants would be as numerous as the stars. So again, Sarah and Abram, as we talked about last week, I think, were not exactly a model marriage, which why it always kind of cracks me up when people keep talking about the family values of the Bible, because they're pretty horrible. And Abram and Sarah's story is an example. It ain't no Hallmark movie. You know, that was Father Ron's favorite, was Hallmark movies. I even one Christmas got him a blanket that had on it Father Ron's Hallmark movie blanket, because he liked happy endings. And we all like that, but life isn't like that. And their life certainly wouldn't make a Hallmark movie. In fact, this reading is edited to spare us. So imagine on this Father's Day, we have all those stories, jokes, but they're really not jokes, of the wife sitting in the car saying, I think we're lost. And the husband saying, I know where we are. Why don't you read the map? I don't need a map. 2 hours later, they're still driving around, right? Well, we know last week we heard that when Abram was asked by God to leave everything he knows, and I reflected on how difficult that must have been for a man, we are told then, was 75 years old. When I ask you to change your pew, imagine being told at 75, you've got to get up and move and go. Who knows where you're going to go? You don't know, but you got to go. So he was 75. We learn today in this section that when his son was born to Sarah, he was 100. That means that Sarah had been saying to him, aren't we lost? For 25 years. So you can imagine how that might have been in their marriage. And we can tell their marriage probably wasn't so great by the way he talked to her, that she hung out in the tent and just basically was shouting things in her. Get dinner ready. Hurry up, we've got guests. And we've also said in the past, because usually when we think of this reading, it's the Feast of the Holy Trinity. Because in our tradition, for thousands of years, this has been seen as the first revelation of the Trinity. And in your next to the last page, we have a copy of that famous icon of the Trinity by Andrei Rublev, which is a picture of the three visitors who've come. Why does our tradition think it's the Trinity? Because when Abram addresses them, the three of them, he says, Lord. He addresses the three of them as Lord. And then further in the story, it says, God said. So these three are being addressed as God in the singular. And so our early church writers and through our tradition see this as a sign of the Trinity. That's why that icon of the three visitors is the icon of the Trinity. And there's humor, right? God says, Sarah laughed. Why'd she laugh? And she's like, I didn't laugh. Because she's afraid. But she really didn't buy it. That laugh meant she really didn't buy it. In a way, her laughter was not a laughter of joy, right? It was sarcastic. It was kind of like, yeah, right. Give me a break. And because she didn't believe, what happens next, we mentioned last week, is what's cut out from this reading, this chapter or two that are missing. She said to Abram, basically, if you really want a kid, go sleep with the maid. Maybe she'll get pregnant. And being biblical family values, that's what he did. He slept with Hagar. And she got pregnant. And she had a boy, a male child, Ishmael. And Sarah, again, showing good biblical family values, said once she was obvious that she was pregnant and was going to have Isaac, get rid of her. Why? Because she'd be a threat to Isaac's position. And Abram, I imagine Sarah was a pretty tough woman, did what she wanted and drove Hagar and Ishmael, the baby, into the desert, probably Sarah hoping they would die. But God intervened, and the story says, sent an angel to Hagar with water and food so that Hagar and Ishmael would live. And it's through that we talk about Abraham being the father of many nations. Because our Muslim sisters and brothers claim their descendants from Ishmael. They say, we are the children of Ishmael. And the Jews said, we are the children of Isaac. So, in an odd way, Abraham became the father of many nations through the maid Hagar. So once Isaac is born, of course, Sarah is very happy, and she talks. The last lines, when we get back to the conclusion, is all about laughter. And in fact, you know what Isaac means in the religion, in original language. It's laughter. So she called her son Laughter. And probably by this point, even though obviously what she did to Hagar, at this point at least, she seems to kind of get it. And her laughter now is one of joy. So what does all that have to do with discipleship and the calling of the disciples? And again, we mentioned how Matthew, the tax collector, who strangely enough, this story comes from his community, right? From the Gospel of Matthew. But even in this long list of the apostles, the only two who are singled out because they're so shocking is Judas, who betrayed him, and Matthew, the tax collector. And we said how that was a shocking thing that Jesus picked him. These 12 and all the other disciples were like Abram and Sarah when they were told to leave everything. They had no idea what was going to happen. And so as I said, since Abram's 100, they've been wandering around for 25 years in their 80s and 90s, if we believe the story. When most of us, like I said, wouldn't even want to change your pew. And so God's asking a lot of faith, a lot of trust, which we usually aren't ready to give. One of my teachers in seminary, and I always remember it as an image, talked about the Christian life being like trapeze artists at the circus. So the trapeze artist is holding on the nice platform to the, I don't know, what would you call it, the bar, the swing, whatever you would call it. But in order to do it, she has to jump off. And not just jump off. While she's in the middle of the air, she has to let go of the bar and fly for a while through the air in the hope and belief that the other bar will be there. There will be another bar that she can hold on to. So this teacher said to us, the Christian life is like that. The Christian life is the ability to live like that trapeze artist between the bars. The whole of the Christian life, if you really live it, is like in that space. It's not holding on to the bar, either bar. It's the willingness to fly through the air in the hope that the other bar will be there. That's very hard to do, isn't it? That's why most of us, if we're honest, to some extent, hide out here. Like Richard said, the best place to hide from God is in religion. Because it's easy to look good or to feel we look good. But I have that sarcastic laugh like Sarah. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. So it's very difficult, the call to discipleship. And Jesus talks about that insecurity and total trust in God that Francis picked up on in what he tells them. Take neither staff, nor gold, nor silver, nor copper, no bag. Don't have 2 tunics. Don't take sandals. Don't take a walking stick. Just go with reliance on God. That's the trapeze act of being a Christian. Very hard, very difficult, and yet very rich and full of real joy and laughter, the way Sarah eventually felt when God did come through, when that the second bar was within her grasp. So, this is a very rich set of scriptures, very beautiful, very challenging. And the reason I decided that we would listen to John Bell's The Summons today is because John asks all the questions, and you can see all the scriptures he based this hymn on. Will you come and follow me if I but call your name? Will you go where you don't know and never be the same? Will you let my love be shown? Will you let my name be known? Will you let my life be grown in you and you in me? Will you leave yourself behind if I but call your name? Will you care for cruel and kind and never be the same? Will you risk the hostile stare should your life attract or scare? Will you let me answer prayer in you and you in me? In other words, will you let yourself be the answer to someone else's prayer? Let God work in you. Will you let the blind one see if I call your name? Will you set the prisoners free and never be the same? Will you kiss the leper clean and do such as this unseen without blowing your own horn? And admit to what I mean in you and you to me? Will you love the you that you hide? Will you quell the fear inside? Will you use the faith you found to reshape the world through my sight and touch and sound in you and me? And then the response, Lord, your summons echoes true. Let me turn and follow you and never be the same. In your company I'll go where your love and footsteps show. Thus I'll live and move and grow in you and you in me. That should be our prayer. Let us then stand and profess our faith in this God of compassion